On a cold day in March in the year 1827, a short, nearsighted man stood with his spectacles perched on his nose and an overcoat to keep him warm, and he helped carry the coffin of the great hero of all Vienna, Ludwig van Beethoven, to its final resting place. When he went home, he sat at the piano and he wrote this song. It's a funeral march. A funeral march for his hero, for Ludwig van Beethoven. That short, spectacled man was Franz Schubert, and he is the first composer that we will be celebrating in my history of romantic music. We'll discover how Beethoven lit the way, not just for Schubert, but for composers of an entire generation to come. He ushered in the Romantic era, an era that's defined by emotional intensity and personal expression. It's a period of time that celebrates both darkness and also light and beauty, like in this passage of the Impromptu, which melts into a series of cascading, bubbling, joyous, lyrical moments. During the course of the 6-week class, we are going to be exploring some of my favorite composers, starting with Schubert and then segueing into the irrepressible Fanny and Felix Mendelssohn, brother and sister who inspired one another, who were one another's greatest fans. We will talk about the tragic Frederick Chopin, who stood in and lived in the island of Paris as an exile from Poland, homesick for his lost countryland, who spun out gorgeous lyrical pieces like this nocturne. And we'll turn to the almost unbelievable story of Robert Schumann and Clara Wieck, two star-crossed lovers, famous throughout Europe, both for their extraordinary music, but also the tragedy of their love affair, which began with a parent who refused to accept Robert as his son-in-law, and ended with poor Robert stuck in an insane asylum, believing he was hearing dictations from the spirits of Schubert and Mendelssohn in order to compose his violin concerto. We'll turn to the larger-than-life figure of Franz Liszt. Legend had it that he had sold his soul to the devil to be able to play the piano the way that he did, and he ended his life in quite the opposite way, however, as a Franciscan tertiary dressed in cassock robes, performing exorcisms and conducting Gregorian chant at the Sistine Chapel. Finally, in our series, we're going to end with, I think, one of the great unsung heroes of history, Johannes Brahms, who certainly idolized Beethoven more than anyone, and whose music, from the tender Berceuse lullaby through the late pieces that he wrote, is filled with a kind of ineffable longing, a longing that many people believe was also connected to the great love of his life, Clara Schumann. This is one of the pieces he wrote for her. I hope you'll join me for 6 weeks of triumph and tragedy, madness and melancholy, extraordinary music, and extraordinary heroes and heroines. I'm Dr. Kaylee Nasbo. Please come and join me for my 6-week course, The Great Romantics, sponsored by the AAUW at the Raven Theater in Healdsburg this fall. Hope to see you there.